All right, guys, it is 3:30 this Monday, February 3rd, and what a day this has been. Starting off with a massive gap down in the overnight in the morning, which looked like everything was going to fall off a cliff, to a pretty much a retracement after the Mexican government delayed the tariffs in Mexico at least, not Canada yet, and so far they're back up again up against this area of resistance, the 15 to the 40 area of resistance again. We've been up above that for quite a while, but we were all the way down to the 59.30s in the overnight. That was a pretty brutal setup, but at this point. We are back up again. I think we are pretty much in a holding pattern, waiting for the Canadian situation to resolve itself. So at this point, I would just start off range bound. I'm not necessarily leaning long. If the Canadian thing gets sorted and delayed, and I think the market pops again. But if it holds in the status quo scenario, I think the market's going to pretty much stay where it's at as they go through the hoops of negotiating through that. Watch that area of resistance. There's 6,040 to 45. So they trade up above this area. They stalled right near the high. They stalled here. If they can trade up above it and clear the this area, we have a shot at trading back up in this upper range again, and maybe even have a shot at trading up to the 6100s again. But I'm going to start off range bound. I'm going to look to sell strength 35s, yeah, 35s, 45s, up to the 60s. I'm going to buy weakness the 10s, the 95s down to the 85s for rotations back up again. So pretty tight range. If they start heading below the 85s, the is overnight session high. That was the when the gap down to. If they start trading below that one again, I'm in on the short side again. If they start trading above the 45s, I think we have a shot at trading back up again. So that's kind of a thing. I mean, and also always a volatile day like this, you had to watch for the fake outs. They start running it higher as they reverse it in your face. That's just a fake out. You're looking for a breakout with some volume behind it. But at this point, I mean, I have been tending the volatility kind of settled down a little bit here after that 2 o'clock hour. I was almost tempted to hop on a long trade here, but I could not just find a good spot. I missed this pullback to the tablet. And then I watched this head and shoulder thing run away from me. I was looking at this, started trading lower, and again, I don't want to sell it low because it's too volatile. So you just need a little burp, and then you're basically back out of it. So that's kind of sad on the sidelines. I could not get my act together on this one to get anything going, but that's kind of where we're at. So at this point, it looks to me like heading back down to that 25s, and there's pulling back a bit. But you wait. If something comes out about the Canadian thing getting sorted or worked out, I mean, it's going to pop again. So. We also have earnings. Remember, we're still in earnings season, so we have a bunch of earnings come out after they close, and see how that's going to impact. I think it's primarily Nasdaq, but definitely earnings coming out after they close. So starting off range bound, look to sell strength, buy weakness. They're going to get short against 35s, 45s, and the 60s. They're going to buy against the 10s, the 59.95s, and 59.85s. So rotations back to that midpoint. All right. Oil and gold, no, oil and gold. The Nasdaq and the bond market is just range bound back down again. So they were freaking out for a bit, but you can see they kind of settled in right now. They were pretty sloppy and volatile this morning. So I haven't traded that at all. But yes, to trade the bonds range bound, I think the flight to safety is a bit over, at least backing off a little bit. So yes, to stay range bound on the bonds. I haven't really traded that at all. On the Nasdaq, I was super tempted of getting short against one of these pullbacks here, but I'm thinking, look, these big bars are huge. I mean, this little bar right there is the 479 to 497. So that is 30 points to the upside. That's bigger than my stop. So again, you kind of had to get short right on the way up and hope that you're timing it so you're within a 25-point radius or a 25-point range from the highs. So I was like, oh man, so it's late in the session, and especially since I'm potentially expecting some probably headline come out or something like that, I just kind of sat on the sidelines. But I was tempted to engage it here in the afternoon because this volatility settled down a little bit. It's definitely tradable. I mean, you look at these bars up here, getting short against this for rotations back down, fine, but you are up against resistance. The only caveat in that whole thing is like you have a pretty good move to the upside all behind you all the way up here. So aggressively getting long on this one feels a little bit overdone, but early on the first two the pullbacks worked, and then it didn't work. So as I said, I mean it can go. It is just a little bit sloppy. So, but I would trade it from the I would trade it in Nasdaq from the long side. I think Nasdaq has recovered a lot better than the ES has. They are all right back up to that 51.20 again. And if they can clear this area of resistance, that 15 to 20 area, if they can clear that, I think we are back on the track again, potentially to trade higher, back above this midpoint. So watch that. And if that happens after the close, we may have a pretty good overnight. So, but at this point, it's starting with a slight bias to the upside on Nasdaq. If they trade below the 370s, I'm taking off that long bias and going back range bound. It could be 340 to 370, that range. I'm going to adjust this edge going into tomorrow. And then finally, oil and gold. And by the way, I haven't taken any trades today. It's been too volatile. And I just told myself, you try to be cute about it, get aggressive about it. You can make a ton of money today, or you can just kind of have a couple of bad trades and then be fighting it and make it back all day long. So I just stayed out of it. Sometimes you just have to know that, it's volatile. And if you have to make the trades a lot bigger than you want, then it's probably better off just sitting on the sidelines, Gold way up after that overnight pullback. That was a pretty darn hard pullback on the Nasdaq. That's on gold. They pulled back all the way to the 2800s, then right back up again to 2850s, and then they popped to the upside. So they made new highs, backing off a little bit. So it's almost reverse retesting support at 2845. And this is your attractor area too, but they're holding above it. So as long as you hold above this area of the 52, 53 area, they're going to stay on the long side on gold, see if they can take it higher. If they back off below that 53, 54 area, I'm going to go back range bound. So that's kind of them looking at gold. And then oil, backing off a bit. They were up and down. Yes, trade oil range bound. They're back in the range. So that tariff price premium came on for a second and back off, and they're back in the slower range again. So I would just look at oil range bound. If anything, it buys to the downside, but until they sort out the Canadian situation, I'm just going to be a little bit cautious about oil. But technically, I'm kind of biased to the downside. So tariff threat came out of nowhere, or not nowhere, but it came out of the side came out of the left field and basically put a little premium on oil temporarily, and now we're right back down again. So trade oil range bound at this point. Gold with a long bias to get started. Back to the ES, and let's see here. I'm kind of pulling back up a little bit. So stuff like this is when you're trying to get short against that tablet, against the 37. That would be your aggressive trade. But as I said, they don't need to pop a lot higher from that 38 up to the 42. Here's your 5-6 point. So you're already above it here. You're already at 38 up to 44. So 8-point trade. And you're just above that area. So it's going to be big stops if you want to trade it, even when it looks pretty calm like this. Alrighty, we'll leave it there for now, and I'll see you back bright and early in the morning. We have a little bit of news before I wrap it. In the morning, we have nothing at 8:30 tomorrow morning, but we do have factory orders and job openings at 10. All right, I'll see you back in the morning, guys. Have a good evening.